Hey, let's see. Cool. Just checking the mic here. Over a little bit. All right. Here we are back from the NAMM show. A lot of people are still traveling back today. I got in last night. I don't have quite as far to travel as some other people. But super happy to have gone. Happy to be back too, but it was a great show this year. Had a ton of incredible people. Saw a bunch of great players. The Bass Bash. I mean, man, you know, Timur Feld, Jimmy Erskine, Tal. There were. Did I just say Jimmy Erskine? Timur Feld, Jimmy Haslett, Damian Erskine, Tal Wilkenfeld, Bobby Lewis. They're just so many great players. Hey, Devin is here. Devin, how you doing? Cool. Yeah, it was. Devin says thanks for stopping by the booth. It was awesome seeing your booth, Devin. You had I posted a couple of the basses from there that were extra cool. There was this one that had a what was up at the top? It was like a stained green and red and purple. It was just like this really wild top that looks awesome. And then there was one with a sandblasted finish that you do that we talked about. You know, I love those. It was a good show. Awesomely tired. Yeah, that sounds about right. Definitely Sunday was a little bit easier than Saturday. Saturday there were just so many people there. Yeah, I was there. Got in, you know, Wednesday afternoon and left around 2 o'clock on Saturday. So 2 o'clock on Sunday. So I saw the majority of it. Hey there, Painkiller. How are you? Wait, Painkiller RHRF DOTF Lone Wolf. Well, hey. Thanks for joining. Cool. So one of the things I did when I got home is I took some notes for myself on just kind of what were my big takeaways from NAMM. So I've been to NAMM, you know, this was maybe the 6th or 7th NAMM show I've been to, but this is the first one that I've gone not in the capacity of like, oh, I scored a ticket with a friend, but you know, I went actually trying to film things, all of the work that and all the content released at something like, you know, Bass Magazine or, you know, that a professional news organization can do. So I've got more videos to upload and get out there, but I think the main thing is support your bass media, you know, whichever magazine you prefer, or online sites, like support them all really, because, you know, subscriptions aren't that much, and we just need those resources to really know what's going on in the bass world. All right, next thing. Okay, so Headless and Multiscale were huge this year. I think everyone kind of saw that coming, especially with it going mainstream with Ibanez. Kiesel's been doing it for years. Steinberg had a big booth last year and this year as well. But Headless was everywhere. MTD had them. So MTD, ACG, Ibanez, Kiesel, probably a bunch more, but that's something that you're just going to see a lot of. And same thing with the Multiscale. Even if it was not headless, there was still a lot of Multiscale headed basses. Oh, the other big one this year was short scales. To me, short scales this year are like what the last year there were the 12 and 15 string basses that looked like the spaceship from Spaceballs, kind of We Break for No One. So there were short scales, you know, Reverend. They had the Mike Watt one and another one. Ashdown had a short scale J bass. Seemed like a really short scale. Sarek was there. And also Carrie Nordstrom launching a new brand. Oh my God, I'm going to say this wrong, but it's like Asionics, something like that. But it means cat. It's a cheetah. It's a Latin term. But those are cool little, almost like Italian design short scale basses. Yeah, next on the list is kind of related. Extended range representation is waning. I think I might have only seen one 7-string there, but there's just not much of that. If you consider 6-string extended range, then yeah, sure. Oh, I just bumped the table. Woo, earthquake. No, not really. I do live in California. That's not an earthquake. Yeah, but let's see. Extended range representation waning. Let's see. 10, 9, 8, 7. All right, 6. Ken Smith has still got it. The Ken Smith bass is now being built with Brubaker. They feel great. They feel like a Ken Smith bass. To me, they're every bit as much as the basses that were built, 2 years ago and on before that. And the other extension of that is Brubaker. Man, I had not had a chance to check out their instruments. I'd only seen them online, but I really dug it. He had, speaking of headless earlier, he had a 32-inch scale 5-string headless bass. Bolt-on, and he's got bolt-ons that where it's like that heelless design where it goes all the way in. That was a super badass bass. Cool. Let's see, what else do we have here? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. I should have written numbers on these. 5. Skill levels, like builder skill levels, are through the roof. Devin's basses, which I was talking about earlier. Pete Hilton, he had this bass with a skateboard top. I'll chop this up and put it in a regular video and throw that, but that was super awesome. New York Bass Works, AC Guitars, Combe, they're a French luthier. Awesome. Devin is asking what stood out for me in terms of bass amps. Couple things. Trickfish, in fact, the Trickfish amps were so awesome. I bought one, Bullhead 1K. Also, just extremely nice people. So I loved Trickfish. At the Orange booth, they have this new pedal preamp called the Bass Butler. That is basically like bi-amping, where you have a low-end channel that's pretty much straight bass with just kind of compression on it, a little EQ, and then a top-end channel with your fuzz. And that was designed with Morgan Nichols, the bass player from Muse. And it's got this really cool expression pedal hookup. And like at the moment where he, had it just kind of on a theme, on a cleanish sound, and then started dialing in the overdrive with the expression pedal on top of it without losing the bottom, it was like, here, take all my dollars. It was cool. Yeah, those definitely stood out for me on the amp side. GR Bass had these really, really lightweight amps. And like a lot of their booth was just about, being able to pick up this 4x10 cabinet very easily. Super lightweight, so that's cool too. What else? Oh, and I had a platform that you could stand on and feel the vibrations. So to me, those were the big kind of really neat things on the amp front. Also spent a fair amount of time at the EBS booth. They've got that new 802 amp coming out. So depending on what you're into, I think there's a lot out there. I was surprised at how much time I spent at amp booths this year and just kind of talking to amp companies. It's cool. GK was not there. I missed them. All right. Let's see. So I was talking about skill levels of builders being through the roof. The other thing is player skill levels are through the roof. So I mean, certainly you go to NAMM and you're going to see Richard Bona and Marcus Miller and Victor and Hadrian and, a ton of players that are well known for being awesome. And they are. It's true. Like you see it, it's amazing. But it's also a great place to meet new players. So Timur Fell was one who I had not heard before. And just like, his solos, at the bass bash, it was like blood on the floor, just kind of slaying everybody. So you have things like that. Steve Lawson, who I'd always kind of like known of, but never really listened to him as closely as I should have. And he was doing a solo set at the Elric booth, went into a Police song, as well as What a Wonderful World, but just kind of like really wrapping my head around all it is that he can do. I think in terms of people who, maybe look at the bass guitar as something in the range of guitars, right? He's really got a unique voice in that way. So that was cool. And then also, you know, people that are, you know, maybe not as well known in terms of having albums out or playing with famous players, but like Aaron Kim was there. He had performed at the bass solo competition with his McElroy, but I remember at one point actually while I was watching Steve Lawson play at the Elric booth, after a while, Aaron was kind of like sitting in the background with headphones on, shedding, doing some kind of like insane sweep stuff that was just cool. So anyway, bass players, awesome. Let's see, another question from Devin. Quirky innovations did I see that I think will have staying power? So one of the things that I think Headless is going to stay more now than it did in the 80s. I think it's got more years in it. And I think part of that is because as builders have figured out like other needs, like how the break angle affects the feel of the instrument, I think those solutions are getting really clever in there. So I think that's going to stay. Fan frets, I think that's going to stay, but what has not happened yet is normalization on what are the kind of start and end points of the scale length. You know, like a Dingwall, it's 37 on the low B, whereas the Ibanez is more like a 35 or maybe 35 and a half. So sometimes even that it's fanned, like that Dingwall to me feels very far out. I'm not a particularly big guy. The other innovation, Henrik Linder with Madison has these kind of squiggly frets. I think it might be a while before that becomes more popular. Not because it's not a great idea, but because of the amount of work it takes to make them and install them. Cool, that was a good question, Devin. Let's see. Am I down to number 3? Yeah, number 3. Much more female representation this year. That was really cool to see. So at the Bass Bash, Tal Wilkenfeld gave an amazing performance, and if you album is like, it's a straight up legit rock album. It's really, really good singing. Also, so Adrian Kapp at the Marlowe booth, Milese, who plays with Santana sorry, I said that totally wrong. She plays with David Crosby. She also did a set at Bass Bash, and that was cool. And I'd love to see her own group too. And then also America Paz. So there were just, generally speaking, to me, there seemed to be a greater presence of female players. And I think that's awesome in the sense of expanding the community. For those of you who have, channels there, you kind of look at your statistics and you say like, wow, this is really, I mean, the music industry in general is very male heavy or male dominated, and society is not as a whole. So I think it's good to bring in, cast a wider net and have a wider audience. Also, let's see what else. Oh yeah, 2. Great tone never fails to bring a smile. And this is, whether I was sitting down and playing an instrument and like the Sarek bassist sat down and just cool little, I was playing one of their Lincolns through a Trickfish amp, and it's just, you get that warm fuzzy feeling. Same thing like I was talking about with that bass Butler pedal. I was just laughing at how good the sound was. But it's not just when I was getting to play something, hearing other people with exceptional tone. T. Murfell was another one that really knocked me out. I talked about him earlier. Seriously, check him out. It's cool. And then my number 1 takeaway is this, not really a surprise, but just that the bass community is full of amazing people. you know, whether it is people who are, you know, the other people that you meet walking around the floor, people who are work for the companies, you know, speaking of amp companies earlier, I mean, the people from Trickfish and EBS and Orange were so nice to me. I've got a tiny channel here, but they treated me really well. They were just great people, all around. But also I would throw out, you know, the people that I met from Bass Magazine and No Treble, and, you know, people that I've met before as well. Let's throw in Devin there, Alan from ACG. It's just like, I don't know, it's cool. It's an environment where I think, like, you know, you see everybody wanting each other to succeed. And so you see, you know, builders talking to each other. And I'm happy to be, I guess, part of this bass community. So kudos, bass players. All right. So that's the top 10 list. That was all of that. I guess questions. What other questions do people have? Anyone out there? Feel free to type questions right into the chat window, and I'm happy to ask. I don't know if I saw every booth, but I saw a whole lot of them. I tried to get to everyone. While we question, which companies or players who've been around a while seem to be doing the best at reinventing themselves? So I think Ashdown is one company here that, I mean, they're really pulling out all the stops, right? They are expanding their product line in the sense that, you know, they were bass amps, and then they started adding pedals. They added the, see if I have it on my desk here somewhere. No, I'm just falling over. But they added the Tone Pocket headphone amp. This year, they added basses to the line, which they're making with Dan Lakin. And they were pretty cool. And they also had headphones. So that is a company that is really doing a good job. In terms of players reinventing themselves, that's also a really interesting question. I do feel like Jimmy Haslip is, it's not like he ever went anywhere, but it feels like there's a bit of a resurgence. That could be because I've just kind of seen him several times in the past year, and I'm very happy about that. He's one of my favorite players. But that's kind of the first that comes to mind is he's kind of like ever relevant, I think, in the world. Cool. Tea is good. I hope everyone who is watching, who is at NAMM, has managed to avoid getting sick. That's a lot of human contact, a lot of new germs spreading around. Alembic basses, they were not present at NAMM this year. I don't think they've been at NAMM for a while. That said, their factory is not that far from me. It's about an hour from me. So I'd love to talk to them about going up and maybe doing a tour. That could be a fun thing for the channel if people think so. Be fun for me either way. That's cool. I had a Series 1 for a while. Little bit long for me. I think maybe a medium scale or a short scale might suit me better in their bass line. But cool basses, and good question. Thanks, Ronald. What else was really cool? It was cool seeing Jonas Hellborg playing a wall again. That's, you know, they're kind of their own special, unique thing, and he's, you know, legendary and amazing player. So he did a couple solo sets at EBS, and I posted one of those live, and he was able to, you know what? I don't know what was new from Squier. Fender had the Ultra Series. Oh, sorry, but I posted the live clip of Jonas, and I was able to interview him for a video I'm working on coming up. Stay tuned for that. That'll be cool. So Fender had their new Ultra Series there, and I think that was the biggest Fender news on the bass front this year that I saw. What else? Towards Spectre basses. Oh, big news, Sadowski and their deal with Warwick. And so you had these lines that were called a Metro Express line, which are made by Framus or Warwick overseas. I don't recall if they're made in Indonesia or Korea, but you have kind of a budget level Sadowski coming. That was cool. Speaking of fan frets going mainstream, Warwick had a fan fret bass there. They also had some of their master grade builds. Those were cool to see. What other builders did I really get a kick out of this year? Oh, Sandburg did a bass for Mono Neon that was, their bass they have that's kind of all of the different variants of their bass, kind of with the angled stripes. The one for Mono Neon wasn't made out of a bunch of different woods and things like that, but it did have a finish that was multiple colors of neon in kind of diagonal stripes going across the bass, 5-string. That was a cool bass. Clearly, I'm drawn to basses with a lot of bright color. Says the guy sitting here with a sunburst, like traditional looking bass. Anyway. Tea is essential for recovering voices after yelling on a NAMM show floor for 4 days. Play Jocko. There's some Jocko. How's the bass level coming through? I'm always worried that it's going to distort this kind of little camera mic. Is that all right? Thanks, Kellen. Actually, there was a bass player, Alex Lafoco from London, who has a very interesting method book, kind of color visualizations of the fretboard. But he was also doing a solo rendition of that tune, but like a more modern take on it with kind of like double thumping and tapping and stuff like that. Check him out. Cool guy. Neat method book too. Great player. Let's see. Oh, short scale basses as well. G&L had their Fallout bass. They've also expanded the CLF research line. So I have a G&L, an old like 82 G&L L2000 with an ebony board. If I had it next to me, I would bring it out, but it's back in another room. But they have this CLF research line that came out a few years ago with old paddle-shaped headstocks, and they recently expanded that line with a few more colors. And probably the bigger news there is they have added a 5-string, which was never available in that configuration. Oh, what is the one thing that I feel really inspired to do now? So number one, write more. I think getting more material out there. I was super impressed by what I heard of other people, and then practice. Like whether you're into a lot of slapping and popping and tapping, or you're into something else, if you go to NAMM, you're going to walk around on the floor and you're going to hear some bass player doing something that you love at an amazingly high level. Usually they're demoing someone's basses or an amp or a pedal or something like that. And I always feel like for whatever kind of bass you like doing, you kind of walk away saying, wow, I'm going to go hit the shed and I'm going to write more. I'm trying to think of a couple like cool little moments. Oh, when I was talking to Morgan Nichols, and I was setting up to do the interview, he did a bit of a flea. Oh, hey, that's my dog, Data. He's just chilling there in the background. Good boy. I've got another dog too, but Data's there. Anyway, was talking to Morgan Nichols and setting up at the beginning, and he started doing this old Flea bass solo. I can't actually remember where it is, but it was in the. Yeah, that's it. It's the bass solo that was the intro to that, which at one point in my teenage years, like I practiced the heck out of that. So it's kind of cool to like, you know, meet someone on that level of player and realize that, you know, a lot of times they have the same hero as you do. That was super cool. The other thing that I'm really inspired to do, and this was based off of a conversation with Etienne Mbappe. I was talking to him about his son. His son is also an amazing bass player. And we were just kind of talking about, you know, raising kids who love music and kind of the joy that you get when you get to make music with your kids. So I have 2 boys. We play brass together, and the drum set there is one of them, my youngest son. So it's really fun to play music with my family. That was kind of cool. So more of that. How about you, Defin? What are you inspired to do now that you're back from the show? Let's see. What is my assessment of the quality and value of Cort basses? So Cort basses are, it's the same factory that makes a lot of the other basses. I believe they make a good deal of the Ibanez basses, not all of them. And for me, I think they're a good kind of, I don't want to say budget line because they're not all strictly like lower budget. They're not, you know, it's not the go get $100 bass kind of like, or $200 Harley Benton or something like that. It's not that kind of thing. But I think in that $500 to $1,000 range, they offer a lot of things that you can try that might be hard to get otherwise. Kind of like Ibanez in that regard, the Ibanez Bass Workshop, where if you want to try fanned frets, or you want to try semi-acoustic, or a half fretted, half fretless, or you know, a 6-string fretless, or things like that. A lot of times, you know, or it used to be, you would have to get a custom bass at a great expense to give that a try before you knew if it was your thing. I think because of companies like Cort and Ibanez Bass Workshop, you can try those things out and find out what you really love and what really works for you, so that if you do get to a point where you're going to order a custom bass from a Defin or from some other builder, you've gotten to try those things and know what works, and I think make a better investment at that point. The other thing I would say is I'm just a huge Jeff Berlin fan. So I love, every year I go and I check out the Rhythmic and I play his, what was that? Right. Yeah. It's a Jeff Berlin, Joe Frazier solo line. Yeah, so I think Corts are good, depending on what you're looking for. Like, if you like the neck shape, their necks to me felt a little bit beefier than the Ibanez. The other basses in that price range that I'd really suggest checking out, though, are Yamaha. I think they're BB series if you're looking for a bolt-on bass. If you're looking for something that is neck through, and in that kind of same-ish price range, I'd really recommend checking out Schecter. My feeling is that they consistently come out with like a high quality level of fretwork, and I love the shape of their necks. So that was one of the surprise, like, nice basses to me. Was Schecter just released this P5, which is a passive, super simple P5 string you know, alder body, maple neck, ebony fingerboard, 34-inch scale, just straight up P, but they do a 4 and a 5 string, and the neck shape is awesome as it is on, I think, most of their basses. So I should maybe spend some more time with Chord, but I think they're good. Anybody have a favorite tea? I'm a mint tea person myself. It's the other. Who else? Met some other YouTubers there. Got a chance to meet Patrick Hunter on the first night. Super nice guy. Also met Jamie Lewis. Also, you know, very, very nice guy. Those guys have much bigger channels. And I'm looking, and Donald Wall, actually. So I would say look for all of the stuff that they're putting out from NAMM. They had some pretty neat ideas. What brand of bass amps were you most impressed with? Trickfish, to the point that, this is a question from Ronald, Trickfish to the point that I bought one. I was like, I am coming home with that. I had not listened to them probably as closely as I should have. I maybe thought that, oh, it's like just going to be some super hi-fi thing. But no, it's amazing. So I think they're shipping it to me from Southern California, so I should have it here in a couple days. Let's see, short scale bass and getting better and better at my craft. Devin, yeah, that would be cool. Did you have a short scale bass there this year, Devin? I did not see it if you did, but I definitely, I hear you about getting better and better at your craft. That's a big takeaway. And actually, you know, so the first NAMM I went to was sometime in the early 2000s, maybe like 2003 or 2001, something like that. But there are some bass builders that have been, you know, they were there then, they're there now. And you can actually, you know, you feel how their instruments have improved over time. They're not just making the same thing over and over again. I'm trying to think of like a good example. So makes the headless Stega basses and the semi-acoustics Paul Lariat, French builder. His neck shapes this year were just, I was like, oh, this is way better than I remembered them being from last time I had seen them several years ago. So as an example of what Devin's talking about, yeah, people are out there and constantly getting better. Those fourth lines are always like tricky. There's a James Carter tune, JC on the Set. It's a rhythm changes tune. It's just. it's got ascending fourths, but it's diminished ascending fourths, right? Because it's going up in minor thirds. Yeah. That's something to practice over the next year. Maybe I'll really get it by next NAMM. Cool. All right. Was anyone else in the chat room make it to NAMM? Awesome. Or I guess another question for people in the chat room: what are the things that you've seen? You know, what did you see coming out kind of online, whether it was on YouTube or Bass Forums or Instagram or something like that, that you are most excited to see in person? Go ahead, pop that into the chat room. Or if there's something that you wanted to see but did not see, what did you think was maybe missing? So either one, go ahead and pop that in the chat. I'll see if I agree with you, in which case you're smart, and if not, in which case you're probably just smarter, you know, smarter than me anyway. It's always a bummer when your blend knob goes like, it's loud and then you blend, it's quiet, and then you blend again, it's loud again. It's a bummer. Hey, Philip. Ryan Harlan, there was a lot of talk about new Fender stuff, Stratosonic, for example, Gibson stuff like at Phone USA, but those two had no big bass stuff to show, right? Or did I miss it? So Fender's big thing is the Ultra series, which is the replacement for their Elite series. I've actually gotten a chance to play those. Those were awesome. Philip Bowles been looking at buying a good but not too expensive bass guitar. Is this your first bass? And what do you mean by not too expensive? What price range do you have in mind? Show him my Yamaha. Yeah, seriously, that's basically the deal. I tell a lot of people looking for their first bass to get one of these. This is a Yamaha, $500. Yeah. Okay. So these are going to be just under that in a 4-string. I think a 5-string might run for $549. What I love about these basses, they're a little bit smaller than the old BBs, but it's alder body, maple, and I think that's Bubinga or mahogany. I don't remember for sure, but maple mahogany neck, rosewood fingerboard. But the super cool thing that I think makes these basses so good is this 6-bolt neck joint. These 2 bolts are set at an angle, pulling the neck in, and you get a really tight joint there. It kind of compresses the joint and just good transfer. And in that price range, I love these basses. And so it's passive, probably out of tune. Right. But passive, volume, and tone. And so you've got your kind of back pickup. You got that, you know, the back pickup, Jocko-ish thing, and it's also got a pretty good P. Now, there are other another one, Sire basses. You can also get those in that price range. This is a Sire. Sire just announced a new series that they had that came out with a little bit lighter woods. Might be worth checking that out too. I was looking at another one of my vids. Yeah, let me know if there are other ones you have questions about that I've done a video on. Happy to talk about them. The Sire P7 is interesting to me. Yeah. So what I think about the Sire is coming out with this new thing, which is the V5, I think. And they are roasted maple necks and a little bit lighter woods. I think that's really interesting to check out as well. I like really vibrant basses, which is one of the reasons that I always kind of steer towards this Yamaha, because I think the wood is so good. The bass isn't perfect. I mean, the tuners are probably the first thing that I would replace on them. They, you know, they hold tune all right, so it's not like you have to replace them right away. But I could totally understand someone upgrading those pretty quickly. Yeah, Sire P7. Yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider, Philip, I'd say, is you can look, if you're looking at your first bass, I would definitely consider looking used. And there's a video that I have. Let me see if I can pull that up. See if I can pull that up without playing my, it's probably going to autoplay that video. Yeah. Oh, no, it's live now, so it's not autoplaying the video. Cool. So I'm going to post a link in here. Watch this, how to choose your first bass guitar.
Sounds like Ben.
Yeah,
today we've got a special.
Pause that and sending this there. Cool. That video talks about what to look for when buying your first bass guitar. I mean, there are a lot of good brands out there, but it's more about going in and making sure that you're not getting an instrument that has issues that you need to watch out for. This yeah, see, it's, I don't know if this is coming through well in the recording, but I really do like the sound of the P pickup on this. That was like the least swinging line. See, I'm a novice, got a new Epiphone for about $240, and I found it sounded rough, a lot of fuzz and hum. Complete novice on bass. Loving this feed, by the way. Thanks, man. Hey, thank you, Philip. Yeah, so definitely, you know, if you have a friend who plays bass or guitar, right, taking them with you can really help. I would say go to your local store, try and, you know, I don't know if you're in the US or not. In the US, there's, of course, a ton of Guitar Centers and Sam Ashes and things like that. So there should be some store reasonably near. But I would also consider your local store that is not a huge chain store. Check out and support them too. Here, there's, you know, the Bay Area. I've seen 5 or 6 stores close in the last few years, but I've also seen a couple really good stores open or expand. Squire Classic Vibes always seemed really nice for shockingly little cost. Yeah, so the Classic Vibe P, which also is in another room, I feel like some other brands have kind of stepped up at this point and are making equivalent or better instruments at that price range. Or maybe not better, but they're more consistently making their instruments. Cool. It's funny, I say that, but I have a Squire Classic Vibe P-Bass 60s that I put semi-flat strings on. I think they were the D'Addario half wounds. I don't even know if they still make those strings, but I put them on when I got it like a decade ago, and the bass sounds great. And I use it on a lot of things. So I don't want to steer people away from that brand because, as Rye pointed out, like they're good. I would just say go check it and see if the particular one you're playing, if you love it. I think that's really true. As much as possible when you're ordering an instrument, especially at the very beginning, find an instrument that you like, right? Play it, check for the things, does it sound good? But more importantly, are you really excited by that instrument? If you really like the look of a black, bass with a maple neck, right? And that bass is okay, I would say, and let's say that bass was like $50 more than the red bass with the rosewood neck that you didn't like as much. You're going to spend a lot of time with this. It's that little bit of $50 is probably money well spent, just from the excitement factor, considering, if all things equal and both basses were, without issue. I guess the other thing is there are, sometimes people ask, should they spend a lot of money on a custom instrument or not, or how do you justify that? So I think that you can get a budget instrument that sounds very good. This is evidence of one. I play it often, so it's my Squire. There are a lot of instruments in that price range. That said, if I pick up a really nice instrument, do I notice a difference? Yeah, like playing, one of Devin's basses or some of the other custom builders I was talking about earlier, you notice a difference. It's at another level, and I think that they are worth their pennies, right? They're worth the money on that. Let's see. So Ronald asks, what was PV present at NAMM this year, and what's your assessment of the quality and value of their price? So PV was at NAMM this year. They also, so there's PV amps. They also own Trace Elliott. So Trace Elliott has these Elf series, really lightweight amps, which I especially love. PV is kind of interesting. So my first bass amp was a PV. It was a PV Mark III head, like solid state. I think it was 300 watts or something like that. And I used to play through this giant Yamaha cabinet. And it seems like for a long time, PV was they were super reliable, right? You might not have liked the sound of it, but you knew that it was like always going to work for you. And so they had this kind of mixed rep. I think the PV Max series is pretty good. If your question is like more general and you're wondering about what beginner combo amps would you maybe look at, I think the Black Star Unity sounds really good. If you can swing it, the Fender Stage or Rumble Stage 800 has a ton of features in terms of it has an effects and a looper and headphone ins and Bluetooth connectivity. They're all the things that to me make it an amazing value proposition in terms of not just having an amp, but having a practice tool. I would look at those, and I thought the PV sounded pretty good. I would look at kind of your combination of needs in terms of power and size and things like that. Cool. All right. Well, let's see, getting down on time here to probably the last 8 minutes or so. Can you explain the difference in different bass strings? Is it the same as acoustic guitar strings like gauges and whatnot? Okay, so bass strings are, you have a few kinds of bass strings. You have what are called round wounds. You know what? I'm going to leave the room for just a second because this will make this better. I don't know why I went around this way. I know, Dave. You want me to throw the ball? So, it's okay. All right. So this is my Squier Classic Vibe, and this has, at this point, we're going to call them flats, right? So originally, your bass strings were flat wound bass strings, right? And what that means is that they're smooth here. You can get those like on jazz guitar, they'll have them. They've got a little like thuddier sound, more of the lower fundamental and less upper harmonics. So just to kind of, I'm going to play a lick on this. Okay, now I'm going to switching basses too, but the biggest difference here is going to be flat wound versus round wound strings. So round wound strings, these are like your normal electric guitar strings, right? So that's one difference. If you're slapping, I'm going to turn it down a little bit. So flat wounds and round wounds are the two primary differences. Then you also have steel versus nickel. Steel strings tend to be a little bit brighter than nickel strings. And then you have kind of this other set of things like tape wound strings. And they all tend towards the darker side of it. So let's say from brightest to darkest, you have steel round wounds, right? Then you probably have nickel round wounds as not quite as bright. Variants of, I'm probably doing this backwards in my left or right thing, but anyway, variants of flat wounds. Some of those are brighter or darker, and then kind of tape wounds as maybe the darkest sounding strings. Cool. And then in terms of string gauges, usually standard on a 4-string bass is going to be probably 45 to about 100 So 45 on the G string, 100 on the E string. It might be 95 or 40, like 40 to 95 if you prefer a little bit lighter strings. Some people may go as heavy as like a 50 to a 110 or something like that. 110 is practically a B string. That's really a lot of tension for an E string. So let's say that's kind of outside of the normal. So this is the Yamaha, and to the point that Ry brought up with the classic vibe, this is a classic vibe. Yeah. So I would think about what type of sound do you like, and if you gravitate towards like older Motown stuff, that's flat wounds on a P bass. This is that combination, and they'll put a piece of foam under the strings to help mute them. I can kind of simulate that sound. So depends on what bass sound you like. Cool. Patrick Hunter, it was awesome meeting you, man. Patrick, it was awesome meeting you. I hope you were able to get some good content, and I'm looking forward to seeing your stuff from the show. I've actually had like no chance over the last week or so since being at NAMM to kind of check out the stuff that's coming out from other people that I follow on YouTube, like Patrick. So thanks for joining in. I did not see a lot of basses there with flat wounds. There was a really cool short scale that had like 3 P pickups. I forget who that was made by. I'm hoping that when I go back through the footage, I can find the name. It's cool. Patrick, what was your Devin earlier had a really good question, which was like, coming back from NAMM, what is it that you feel you need to do more of now? Like what's on your list? We'll see. And this goes to anyone else, whether you were there or not. If you just saw things coming out, did it, or you saw clips of players, is there something that it makes you want to practice, or is there some part of your sound signal chain that you want to get together? This is my first time actually sitting down and practicing bass since being back, so it's, playing for 5 minutes while you're like demoing a piece of gear between filming something does not get your chops in shape, really. Cool. Well, I guess that about wraps it up. Thanks everyone for joining and watching, and thank you all for asking questions as well. I hope that you had a great weekend and a great time following NAMM stuff. I'll still have, hey, look, like, ooh, reflection, ooh, trippy. Wait, if we can get the other reflection lined up, it's like an endless mirror. Woo, that's fun. 2 in the morning here. I'm up at 7. Just very thankful. Cool. Well, thanks for watching, Philip. Wherever you are, that it's 2 in the morning, get some sleep, man. Or if you're on a night shift, I guess don't sleep later in the day. I'm not your mom. But cool. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And thanks for following on. I should have a few more videos coming up of some other NAMM stuff, a few more performances coming out over the course of this week. And all right, thanks and take it easy.